I spoke on this subject out of a lifelong interest in religious freedom and a concern that I have had for some time about the declining influence of religion in personal lives and in public life. Oh, I would say that the Proposition 8 backlash, if we can call it that, was a fragment in the overall structure. I wouldn't deny that it became an important example, but it was not the occasion for me to speak. When I refer to intimidation against the exercise of a religious principle or religious faith, I'm not referring to opposition. I'm not referring to preaching contrary principles. What I mean by intimidation is when people exercise their religious beliefs and they are then fired from jobs. Churches are subject to vandalism. People are coerced. I think burning a cross on somebody's lawn is one of the most reprehensible things that could happen, because that is a threat. That is intimidation. And that was directed in the course of the civil rights battles. But there are other forms of intimidation. A swastika planted on the side of a synagogue is a form of intimidation. There's a threat involved in it. That does not say I disagree with you. That says I hate you and I'm going to act against you in ways that I hope you will fear and use as a cause to change your place of residence or your way of worship or something like that. That's the kind of thing I refer to when I say intimidation. I don't refer to disagreement or public controversy within acceptable democratic limits that we all understand in this nation. I think the civil rights analogy is a good one in the sense that it calls to mind the fact that people who were exercising a civil right, the right to vote, the right to be free from certain kinds of legally forbidden discriminations in education, for example, were intimidated and coerced. They were punished for asserting their civil right. The power of that analogy for me is that people who asserted one position on an election in California were punished. Some of them were fired from their jobs. Some had their places of worship desecrated with vandalism. Some were told, we're boycotting your business because you don't agree with us in the position you've taken. I see that as directly comparable to the intimidation of black people in the South for asserting their civil rights. I would say that the intimidation that I refer to in connection with the Proposition 8 was not as serious as the one that happened in the South, but I think the analogy is a good one. I think the contest between secularism and religious faith is inevitable because they are different approaches to the meaning of life and the way one should live it. So I think an adversary relationship between secularism and religious faith is just as inevitable as an adversary relationship between people who hold one religious belief and people who hold another. But what is not inevitable is meanness, intimidation, charges of bad faith, those kinds of things that are part of contention are not inevitable. We can learn to disagree agreeably. It's always been so. Anytime you dip into recorded history, you find people with adversary relationships. They think differently about things. So I assume that's inevitable. But the way it's conducted should be civilized and consistent with democratic principles. The Constitution calls for a separation of church and state. What that means is that churches should not have undue influence on government except through the beliefs and actions of citizens. Churches shouldn't be part of the state. They shouldn't be established as the official religion. And it means also that government should stay out of the affairs of churches and not try to bear down on religious doctrine or to inhibit the expression of religious faith. There is nothing in the separation of church and state that says that a person has to leave their religious faith and beliefs outside when they go into the ballot box or when they go into the lawmaking bodies. And so I think it is false to our democratic beliefs to contend that people who seek to promote one public policy or another, or who seek to oppose one public policy or another, are violating the separation of church and state. It's no more a violation of the separation of church and state for me to act upon my religious beliefs than it is for a person who opposes some religious principle to act on his secular beliefs. The great benefit that religious principles and religious faith bring to a democratic society is that it implants moral principles in its adherents. And it's in the nature of things that the law is too clumsy an instrument to govern all aspects of personal behavior. One of the founding fathers expressed this principle when he said that democracy is a good form of government, but only if you have a moral people. In other words, if the majority are going to make the laws, they better be acting out of good principles. And where do those good principles come from? For many, they come from religious faith. For others, they come from philosophical principles and from family teachings. I think as a people of the United States of America, we have a great interest in any system of belief, ethical, moral, religious, or simply family, tribal. Well, I think I would say first that the First Amendment to the United States Constitution is an important statement, and it's important not only to the United States of America and its citizens, but it's important throughout the world. The free exercise of religion is a great principle. It's a human right of major dimension. And I would say that in the United States, I think we need to know more about it, to think more clearly about it, and to see the way it is threatened by a deteriorating respect for religion and by some faulty thinking about what is the free exercise of religion and how does one urge it, upon one's fellow citizens? How does one practice it responsibly?